Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you push, nothing seems to click into place? Like you're chasing after things, people, or situations, hoping they'll finally give you peace. But all you find is frustration. What if the real answer isn't out there, but in here? When everything outside seems uncertain, noisy, and unpredictable, most people instinctively try to control their external circumstances first. They attempt to manage people, fix situations, or force outcomes to match their expectations. But the more they try to push and manipulate the world around them, the more resistance they often encounter. This is because the outer world is merely a reflection of the inner world. The real shift happens not when we rearrange the external, but when we realign the internal. Inner alignment is the state where your thoughts, emotions, and actions begin to operate in harmony, moving in a single direction rather than pulling against each other. It's when the noise of self-doubt quiets down and your internal state becomes coherent, calm, and focused. From this space, you stop being at the mercy of circumstances and begin to influence them. Most people live in a fragmented inner world. Their thoughts want one thing. Their emotions are stuck in the past, and their actions are often guided by unconscious habits. They may say they want change, but emotionally, they're still carrying the weight of old fears, resentments, or limitations. This misalignment creates a kind of internal static, like a radio tuned between stations. And when you send out a signal like that into the world, the results you get are equally unclear and scattered. Inner alignment is like fine, tuning that frequency until it becomes crystal clear, and suddenly, what once felt like chaos begins to organize itself. It's not because the external world suddenly changes, but because your perception and energetic state change, allowing you to interact with life in a different way. To align internally, you first have to become aware of the dissonance within you. Most people never stop long enough to notice their thought patterns, emotional loops, or behavioral reactions. They're constantly busy, scrolling through endless noise, reacting to circumstances, and chasing distractions. But true alignment requires stillness, observation, and honesty with oneself. It means pausing to ask, what am I really thinking about all day? How am I feeling most of the time? Are my actions reflecting the person I say I want to become? These questions shine a light on the hidden conflicts within. When you see those conflicts clearly, you can begin the process of bringing them into harmony. Inner alignment is not about pretending everything is perfect or forcing yourself to feel positive. It's about recognizing the gap between who you are being and who you want to be, and gently closing that gap through awareness and intention. For example, you might say you want to feel confident and abundant, but if your inner dialogue is filled with self-criticism, your emotional state is rooted in fear, and your daily actions reflect avoidance or procrastination, then the energy you emit contradicts your desires. By consciously changing the way you think, shifting your emotional state, and aligning your actions with your intentions, You begin to broadcast a consistent frequency to the world. This alignment creates a powerful sense of internal stability. Instead of reacting to every challenge with anxiety or doubt, you respond from a grounded center. It's like the difference between a ship tossed by every wave and a ship with a steady anchor. Life's storms don't stop, but your ability to navigate them transforms. You begin to move with life rather than against it. And that's when external circumstances start to fall into place almost effortlessly. People sense your clarity. Opportunities align with your state. You're no longer chasing, you're attracting. On a deeper level, inner alignment taps into the brain-heart connection. When your thoughts and emotions are coherent, your body's electromagnetic field becomes more ordered. Scientific studies show that this coherence affects not only your mental clarity and emotional stability, but also the way you influence the environment around you. It's as if your inner state sends out a signal that the world responds to. This is why, when people finally align internally, things that once seemed stuck suddenly begin to move. Situations resolve more smoothly. Synchronicities increase. People show up at the right time. It feels almost supernatural, but it's simply the natural outcome of coherent energy. Inner alignment also involves detaching from the need to control external outcomes. Many people believe that if they just plan more, work harder, or push longer, they can force things into place. But real power doesn't come from force, it comes from clarity and consistency. When you're internally aligned, your actions are more intentional, your energy is less scattered, and your presence becomes magnetic. People trust aligned individuals because they exude certainty and authenticity. You're no longer sending mixed signals to the universe or to those around you. You become like a clear lighthouse beam in the dark, unmistakable and unwavering. One of the most profound shifts that happens through inner alignment is the dissolution of internal resistance. Resistance is what happens when part of you wants something new, but another part clings to the familiar. It's the tug of war between desire and doubt, vision and fear. This resistance slows down progress and creates friction in everything you do. But when thoughts, emotions, and actions align, resistance weakens because there's no longer an internal split. Your entire being is moving in one direction, and that unified force is far more powerful than fragmented effort. Inner alignment also deepens your relationship with the present moment. When you're internally scattered, your mind is often lost in past regrets or future worries. But alignment brings you back to now, the only moment where change can actually happen. From this space, you're not chasing after external validation or waiting for circumstances to shift before you can feel whole. You generate that wholeness from within, and the outer world adjusts in response. The power of inner alignment lies in the fact that it doesn't require external permission. You don't need anyone's approval, the perfect timing, or ideal conditions. It begins with your decision to turn inward and bring your internal world into harmony. This is the foundation upon which everything else is built. When the inner structure is strong, the outer world starts to reflect that strength back to you. When the internal state is coherent, external order naturally follows. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. This simple yet profound truth is the hidden mechanism shaping the quality of your life every single day. Most people underestimate the power of their attention. They think of it as something passive, as if they're just observing life unfold. But attention is not neutral, it is creative. Whatever you consistently focus on, you feed with your emotional and mental energy, and over time, it grows. If your attention is scattered, consumed by distractions, worries, or external drama, then your energy becomes equally scattered. When your attention is disciplined and directed inward, toward growth, healing, and clarity, your energy becomes focused and begins to reshape your internal and external reality. In today's world, attention has become one of the most valuable resources, and everyone is competing for it. Social media platforms, news cycles, advertisements, and endless notifications are designed to hijack your focus. Every time you scroll mindlessly or get lost in external noise, you are handing away fragments of your energy. Over time, this leaves people feeling drained, unfocused, and disconnected from their deeper purpose. They wonder why their lives feel stagnant, but they fail to see that their attention has been consumed by things that don't build them. When you begin to take back control of where your attention goes, you reclaim your energy, your creativity, and your power to influence your reality. The mind has a natural tendency to wander toward problems, threats, or comparisons. It is wired to scan for danger and to dwell on unresolved issues. This instinct may have served survival in ancient times, but in the modern world, it often keeps people locked in cycles of anxiety and negativity. When attention keeps returning to what's missing, what's wrong, or what could go wrong, your energy reinforces those states. You begin to emotionally invest in worry, replaying worst-case scenarios and strengthening neural pathways of fear. The more attention you give to these patterns, the more real and dominant they become in your life. This is why two people can live through the same external circumstances, but have completely different experiences. Because one directs their attention toward growth and possibility, while the other fixates on obstacles and lack. Shifting where your attention goes is like redirecting a river. At first, it may feel difficult because the current has been flowing in the same direction for years. But the moment you decide to consciously guide it, you begin to reshape the landscape of your mind and your life. Instead of pouring energy into comparing yourself to others, you direct that energy towards self-mastery. Instead of fixating on problems, you focus on solutions and opportunities. Instead of replaying old emotional wounds, you place your attention on healing and creating new emotional states. Wherever that attention lands, your energy follows, nourishing those areas until they grow stronger and more influential in your reality. This principle also explains why people often manifest the very things they fear. When attention is locked on potential negative outcomes with emotional intensity, the brain and body begin to live as if those outcomes are already real. The subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between imagined scenarios and lived experiences. It simply responds to where energy is directed. So, by continually focusing on what you don't want, you inadvertently energize and strengthen it. The key is not to suppress or ignore unwanted thoughts, but to become aware of them and gently redirect your attention toward what you do want to create and experience. Attention is also deeply connected to emotion. Wherever your attention goes, your emotional state follows, and in turn, your emotional state amplifies where attention stays. For example, if you place your attention on gratitude, your emotional state rises, and that elevated emotion reinforces your focus on more things to appreciate. If you place your attention on lack, frustration, or comparison, those emotions intensify, making it even harder to look away. This creates loops, either empowering or disempowering, depending on where attention is anchored. By deliberately choosing where to focus, you break those old loops and build new emotional patterns that support growth and expansion. This is why practices like meditation, visualization, and mindfulness are so powerful. They train you to master your attention. When you close your eyes, silence the noise, and bring your awareness inward, you begin to notice just how often the mind drifts. Every time you gently return your focus to the present moment or to your chosen intention, you strengthen your ability to direct your energy consciously. Over time, this builds mental discipline. You become less reactive to external distractions and more capable of sustaining attention on what truly matters. This sustained attention fuels transformation because energy concentrates where it is deliberately placed. Attention also shapes identity. Whatever you repeatedly focus on, you eventually become. If you constantly place your attention on limitations, you begin to identify as someone limited. If you focus on potential, growth, and personal power, you start to embody those qualities. Your brain wires itself according to what you feed it. Neurons that fire together wire together. So, consistent attention in a particular direction literally rewires your neural circuits, making new ways of thinking and being more automatic. In relationships, attention plays a crucial role as well. When you constantly focus on someone else's flaws, you energize those perceptions and they become more pronounced in your experience of that person. When you shift your attention toward their strengths, qualities, or shared goals, the dynamic between you begins to change. The same applies to your relationship with your work, health, or any other aspect of life. Whatever you focus on, you breathe life into. Taking responsibility for your attention means recognizing that you are not a passive observer of your reality, you are an active participant. Every thought you dwell on, every story you replay, every vision you nurture is either depleting or amplifying your energy. Most people allow their attention to be pulled around by circumstances, impulses, and external noise. But the moment you decide to consciously place it where it serves you, you step into a different level of personal power. You stop feeding the distractions that drain you and start investing energy into the reality you want to build. This shift is not about forcing positivity or ignoring real challenges. It's about reclaiming your focus from things that don't serve your growth and consciously redirecting it toward what does. When you master your attention, you master your energy. And when you master your energy, you become capable of influencing your inner world in ways that ripple outward into your external experience. Most people live their entire lives as reactors rather than creators. From the moment they wake up, their inner state is shaped by what's happening around them. They check their phones, see the news, scroll through social media, or think about other people's opinions, and immediately their emotional state is set by external input. If things look good, they feel good. If something goes wrong, their mood collapses. This is the habit of external dependence, the deeply conditioned tendency to rely on the outer world to determine how we feel inside. It's a subtle pattern that keeps many people trapped in cycles of frustration because the external world is constantly changing, unpredictable, and often beyond personal control. When you depend on it to feel whole, peaceful, or fulfilled, you hand away your power. This habit is often learned early in life. From childhood, people are conditioned to seek approval, rewards, or validation from authority figures, family, teachers, or peers. Success becomes measured by external achievements, appearance, or acceptance. Over time, this creates a psychological structure where self-worth is tied to how well the outside world responds. If others approve, you feel valuable. If circumstances align, you feel safe. But if something doesn't meet expectations, if you're criticized, ignored, or something fails, you feel diminished. This dependency becomes so ingrained that most people don't even recognize it's operating. They confuse temporary external comfort with true internal stability. Living this way creates emotional volatility. You wake up in a good mood, but one message, one unexpected problem, or one opinion can derail your entire day. You feel like life is happening to you rather than through you. Every victory gives a temporary high, but every setback pulls you into discouragement. It's a roller coaster driven by forces outside your control. This kind of living is exhausting because it's unstable. You keep chasing the next external fix to feel good again, but the relief is always temporary. External conditions can never provide lasting peace because they are impermanent and constantly shifting. Breaking this habit requires a shift in where you source your sense of self and emotional state. Instead of waiting for the world to give you permission to feel happy, successful, or safe, you begin to generate those states from within. This doesn't mean ignoring the external world. It means no longer letting it dictate your internal reality. It's the difference between being a leaf blown around by the wind and being the wind itself. When your inner state is self-generated, external circumstances lose their power to control you. You can face challenges without collapsing, and you can experience success without becoming dependent on it for your sense of worth. One of the biggest reasons people stay dependent on external factors is the brain's conditioning. Over time, the brain learns to associate certain external triggers with emotional responses. A notification gives a rush of dopamine. A compliment brings warmth. A setback triggers stress hormones. These repeated patterns become neural habits. Your body becomes accustomed to reacting emotionally to outside stimuli. You're not consciously choosing these responses. They're automatic. Breaking external dependence involves becoming aware of these unconscious reactions and interrupting them. When something external happens, instead of immediately reacting, you pause, breathe, and choose how to respond. That simple moment of awareness breaks the old pattern and begins to rewire your brain. Emotions play a key role here. Many people live in emotional states that are entirely conditioned by the past. If someone was hurt, rejected, or overlooked, they often carry those emotional imprints forward, seeking external situations to either validate or heal them. But because they're still operating from the same emotional frequency, they unconsciously recreate the same patterns. They enter relationships hoping others will make them feel worthy. They pursue achievements hoping success will erase their insecurity. They look for circumstances to fill emotional gaps that can only truly be filled from within. When these expectations aren't met, disappointment reinforces the cycle of dependence. To break this habit, there must be a willingness to turn inward and take full responsibility for your emotional life. This isn't about blame, it's about reclaiming authorship. Instead of saying, "This person made me feel this way," or "This situation ruined my day," you begin to recognize, "I am feeling this way because my internal state is reacting to an external event, and I have the ability to shift that state." This shift is profound because it places power back where it belongs, inside you. When you stop needing the world to behave a certain way for you to feel okay, you become emotionally resilient. Another layer of external dependence is comparison. Many people measure their worth by looking at others, their achievements, appearance, lifestyle, or success. This constant comparison feeds insecurity because there will always be someone who seems to have more. It keeps your focus outward, chasing standards that aren't yours. But when you stop using others as a yardstick and bring your focus back to your own path, growth, and values, you begin to build an internal foundation that doesn't sway with external fluctuations. This shift also impacts how you pursue goals. When dependent on the external, goals become conditions for happiness. I'll be happy when I achieve this, when this person approves of me, when this situation changes. But when you break external dependence, you no longer postpone your emotional well-being until circumstances align. You approach goals from a state of completeness rather than lack. Instead of using achievements to fill a void, you create from fullness, which ironically makes success more sustainable and meaningful. Breaking this habit involves consistent inner work. It means observing where you give external situations power over your emotions. It means practicing emotional self-regulation through awareness, breath, or presence. It means consciously deciding to cultivate inner states like peace, gratitude, or confidence, independent of what's happening outside. Over time, your nervous system adapts. What once triggered you loses its grip. You stop reacting to every external fluctuation and start responding from an inner center that remains steady. This doesn't isolate you from life, it liberates you within it. You can still enjoy praise without needing it. You can appreciate success without being defined by it. You can experience setbacks without crumbling. This is the essence of breaking the habit of external dependence, no longer outsourcing your emotional stability and self-worth to a world that is constantly changing, but becoming the stable core from which everything else is experienced. Most people spend their lives reacting to what happens around them. They wake up and immediately respond to external inputs, messages, notifications, responsibilities, other people's moods. Their emotional state is determined by circumstances, and their actions are often attempts to fix or adapt to whatever is happening. This reactive way of living makes you the effect of your environment rather than the cause of your reality. You wait for things to improve before you feel better. You wait for the right opportunity before taking action. You wait for permission, support, or perfect timing before expressing your potential. But when you decide to become the cause, you stop waiting and start generating. You stop living as a mirror reflecting external conditions and start becoming the source that shapes them. Becoming the cause means taking responsibility for your inner state before external events occur. Instead of allowing the outer world to dictate how you feel, you generate the state you choose from within, and then bring that energy into your actions and interactions. It's a shift from asking, "What's happening to me?" to declaring, "This is what I'm creating." When you live from this mindset, you stop being a passive observer and start becoming a deliberate architect of your experience. It doesn't mean controlling everything outside of you. It means controlling your internal alignment so that what you do create is intentional, coherent, and powerful. Many people don't realize that their environment is constantly responding to the energy and state they bring into it. Walk into a room with stress, fear, or frustration, and you'll notice how the space and people subtly adjust to that energy. Walk in with clarity, confidence, and purpose, and the environment begins to shift around you. Becoming the cause is about recognizing that your inner state is not just personal, it influences the field around you. Your thoughts and emotions are not isolated. They ripple outward. When you shift from reaction to creation, your presence itself begins to shape circumstances rather than simply adapt to them. This shift requires self-awareness. Most people's identities are built around their reactions to external conditions. They define themselves based on their past, their environment, and how others treat them. Their self-image becomes a collection of conditioned responses rather than a consciously chosen identity. To become the cause, you must pause and ask, am I choosing this response, or am I repeating an old pattern? In that pause lies your power. Instead of letting an old emotional program run your behavior, you consciously decide how to think, feel, and act in alignment with the future you want to create, not the past you're repeating. This is where intentionality becomes crucial. When you live as the effect, your actions are often driven by avoidance, fear, or short-term comfort. You react to problems instead of designing solutions. But when you live as the cause, your actions are anchored in vision. You move with purpose. You decide who you want to be, how you want to show up, and what energy you want to bring into each situation. This doesn't mean forcing outcomes. It means showing up in a way that influences outcomes through presence and consistency. Cause-based living is proactive, not reactive. One of the most powerful ways to embody this principle is to start each day by setting your internal state, rather than waiting for the world to do it for you. Many people start their mornings checking emails or scrolling through their phones, which immediately places them in reaction mode. Instead, when you begin by centering yourself, visualizing your intentions, or grounding your emotional state, you set the tone for how you want the day to unfold. You become the cause that influences how you experience the events that follow. Challenges may still arise, but your response is shaped by your chosen state rather than the challenge itself. This shift also applies to goals and personal growth. When you are the effect, you often set goals reactively to fix problems, to prove something to others, or to compensate for perceived lack. When you are the cause, your goals emerge from inspiration, vision, and alignment. You're not trying to escape your current reality. You're expressing the reality you want to create. This changes the energy behind your actions. Instead of striving from desperation, you act from creative power. Instead of reacting to lack, you create from fullness. It's also important to understand that becoming the cause is not about controlling everything outside of you. Control and causation are not the same. Control is rigid and fear-based, an attempt to manipulate external factors to match internal expectations. Causation is fluid and powerful. It's about holding a strong internal state and allowing your actions and energy to influence the external naturally. When you focus on being the cause, you're less attached to immediate results because your sense of power comes from within, not from external validation. You understand that consistent internal alignment eventually really reorganizes external reality in ways that may be unexpected, but always aligned with the energy you project. One of the greatest obstacles to becoming the cause is emotional addiction to being the effect. Many people have spent years living in states of victimhood, blame, or dependency. These states, while painful, can become familiar and even comfortable because they absolve responsibility. If everything is someone else's fault, you don't have to change. If circumstances determine your state, you can keep waiting for the world to fix itself. But this comfort is deceptive because it keeps you powerless. Becoming the cause requires breaking free from these emotional identities and choosing a higher level of ownership. When you shift to being the cause, challenges don't disappear, but your relationship to them changes. Instead of seeing obstacles as threats, you view them as opportunities to demonstrate your power to choose your state. Instead of waiting for others to change, you change your approach and energy, which often leads to unexpected transformations in the situation itself. You realize that the external world is often a mirror reflecting your internal state, not an independent force acting upon you. This principle also applies to relationships. When you live as the effect, you constantly react to how others behave, giving them control over your emotions and responses. When you live as the cause, you show up in relationships with clarity about who you are, what you value, and what energy you choose to bring. You communicate from presence rather than reactivity. This doesn't guarantee others will change, but it ensures you're no longer unconsciously shaped by their behavior. You become a stabilizing influence rather than a participant in emotional chaos. Becoming the cause is ultimately about stepping into creative power. It's realizing that you don't have to wait for ideal conditions to begin living the life you want. You can generate the state, energy, and behavior now, regardless of what's happening externally. The more consistently you do this, the more the external begins to rearrange itself around the new state you embody. Life stops feeling like a series of random events you must react to and starts feeling like a dynamic field that responds to your internal coherence and intention. When you begin to focus on your inner world and take responsibility for your thoughts, emotions and energy, something extraordinary happens. The effects don't remain confined within you. They spread outward, touching your relationships, your environment, and even the opportunities that come into your life. This is the ripple effect of self-transformation. Just like a single drop can create waves that travel across an entire body of water, one person's inner shift can alter the dynamics of everything around them. It's not about forcing others to change or trying to manipulate external circumstances. It's about becoming the kind of person whose energy naturally influences their surroundings without effort. Most people try to change their lives by changing others first. They think if someone else behaves differently, if the workplace becomes more supportive, if their partner communicates better, or if the world becomes more accommodating, then they will finally feel at peace. But this approach places all the power outside themselves. It's like trying to calm turbulent water by moving the waves with your hands. True transformation happens when the source of those waves, your internal state, shifts. When you change your energy, your environment begins to respond in subtle but profound ways. The ripple effect begins with the way your energy influences the unseen dynamics between people. Humans are constantly exchanging information beyond words. Facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, and even subtle energetic cues shape how we relate to each other. When your inner state is chaotic, anxious, or reactive, those around you unconsciously pick up on it, often responding with their own defense mechanisms or reactivity. But when your energy becomes calm, grounded, and coherent, it creates a kind of energetic field that others feel. Conversations become smoother, tensions often dissolve, and people feel more at ease in your presence. Without saying anything, you've shifted the emotional climate of the space. This phenomenon can be observed in many contexts. In a family, when one person decides to work on their emotional patterns, communicate more consciously, or stop engaging in reactive behaviors, the dynamic gradually changes. The entire family system begins to adapt to the new energy. In a workplace, when one individual shows up with clarity, focus, and emotional stability, it often elevates the performance and morale of the team. People feel more supported, inspired, or grounded. Even in friendships, when you evolve internally, your conversations deepen, your boundaries become clearer, and your connections become more authentic. You stop matching the chaos of the external and start leading with inner coherence, which naturally invites others to meet you at a higher level. The ripple effect also extends to opportunities and external circumstances. When your energy shifts, the kinds of people and experiences you attract begin to change. This isn't mystical, it's a natural outcome of alignment. When you operate from fear, doubt, or scarcity, your actions, decisions, and communication reflect that. You unconsciously send signals that reinforce those states, attracting situations that mirror them back. But when you embody confidence, gratitude, and clarity, your energy communicates something entirely different. The opportunities that resonate with that state begin to appear, not because the world suddenly changes, but because you've changed the lens through which you engage with it. Self-transformation also impacts how you perceive challenges. When you are internally scattered, problems feel overwhelming and personal. But when your inner world becomes stable, the same challenges are viewed through a different perspective. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw obstacles. You respond creatively instead of reactively. This shift in perception is contagious. People around you start to adopt similar attitudes because your example demonstrates a different way of approaching life. This is how leadership often works, not through commands or demands, but through the unspoken influence of a transformed inner state. Another dimension of the ripple effect is emotional regulation. Many group dynamics, whether in families, workplaces, or communities, are shaped by emotional contagion, the unconscious spread of emotions from one person to another. If someone walks into a room with anger or fear, that energy spreads quickly. But the opposite is also true. A calm, focused, and emotionally balanced individual can stabilize the atmosphere. When you regulate your emotions, you become an anchor in any environment. People begin to look to you for guidance, not because you're trying to control them, but because your presence feels safe and grounded. This influence is subtle, yet incredibly powerful. The ripple effect is not limited to interpersonal interactions. It extends to the larger collective field. History shows that individual transformations often precede cultural or societal shifts. Many movements, ideas, or changes started with one person choosing to embody a new way of being and living it consistently. Over time, Their energy inspired others, their actions set examples, and their presence challenged existing norms. Transformation spreads not by force, but by resonance. When enough individuals shift their internal state, the collective begins to reflect that shift. On a more personal level, this ripple effect means that the work you do on yourself is never wasted. Every moment you choose awareness over reaction, compassion over judgment, or clarity over confusion, you are sending out a signal. You may not always see the immediate impact, but it is felt. People remember how they feel in your presence more than what you say. When your inner transformation deepens, your impact on others becomes less about effort and more about embodiment. You no longer need to convince anyone of anything. Your state speaks for itself. Self-transformation also creates ripples in the way you set boundaries and expectations. When you are insecure or reactive, you often tolerate behaviors, situations, or dynamics that don't serve you because you fear losing external validation. But when you transform internally, your standards naturally rise. You no longer need to enforce them harshly. They emanate from your presence. People sense the shift and adjust accordingly. This is how relationships either deepen authentically or naturally fall away when they no longer align with who you are becoming. Either way, the ripple continues, shaping your environment to reflect your new internal reality. One of the most overlooked aspects of this principle is how transformation influences the next generation. Children, students, or anyone who looks up to you absorb not just what you teach verbally, but how you live. If they see someone constantly reacting to life, seeking external approval, or living in fear, they internalize those patterns. But if they witness someone grounded, intentional, and self-aware, that becomes a model they can emulate. The ripple effect crosses time through the behaviors, emotional patterns, and energy you embody daily. The beauty of this ripple effect is that it removes the pressure to fix everything outside yourself. You no longer need to convince, control, or manipulate others to change. You focus on becoming the most aligned version of yourself. And through that alignment, the world around you begins to shift. It's not about being perfect. It's about being authentic, conscious, and consistent in your transformation. Every inner shift, no matter how small, contributes to a larger wave of change that moves far beyond your immediate awareness. When you turn your focus inward and commit to transforming your inner world, everything around you begins to reorganize in ways that may once have seemed impossible. Inner alignment gives you clarity and strength. Attention directs your energy with precision. Breaking external dependence frees you from emotional volatility. Becoming the cause places power back in your hands, and self-transformation sends ripples far beyond your immediate life. This journey isn't about forcing the external world to bend to your will. It's about becoming so internally anchored, intentional, and coherent that the external naturally responds to the energy you embody. When you stop chasing and start aligning, when you stop reacting and start creating, life begins to flow with a rhythm that matches your deepest state of being. Everything falls into place, not because the world changes first, but because you do.